The Nova Series LED projectors here in Midnight Black will be a premium headlight option for all 2018 through 2020 F-150 owners who might be looking to ditch those lame and boring factory halogens in favor of a radical looking headlight just loaded with extra features. Now, these particular Novas do feature what is called their Midnight or Alpha Black, which gives you a very aggressive, almost smoked appearance, and it will be topped off with a polycarbonate lens, quad projectors, switchback LED DRLs, and finally some sequential turn signals, just to name a few. The lights are both DOT and SAE approved, and they do also get backed by a 2-year limited warranty for right around that mid $1,300 price point. Installation, at least according to the site, will get a solid 2 out of 3 wrenches on the old difficulty meter, and I would say take at least an hour to complete, probably a little bit more, but if you hang with me for a bit, we'll walk you through that job later in the video. So first things first, as I just pointed out, these are certainly not going to be for everyone based on price alone. I totally get that. However, what you guys have to keep in mind is that these, the Nova Series, along with the Morimoto XB, probably 2 of the nicest headlights currently available in the aftermarket here on the site. And as the old adage goes, you get what you pay for, and these are certainly built very well. You also have to keep in mind that if you wanted to go with a factory Ford LED headlight for this particular gen, you're gonna drop at least $2,000 to grab a set brand new. So all stuff to consider here when shopping for headlights, and I think the Nova Series are certainly worthy of being in the discussion. But with all that said, what do you say we dive a little deeper here? So the Nova Series, it's going to be the premium or high-end option. And first glance, I think the most eye-catching part of these particular headlights will be your quad projectors loaded with Osram hardware, arguably some of the nicest LED lighting tech currently produced in the category. Now, you're going to be getting an extremely long lifespan out of these, low thermal resistance, just to name a few, and they're just simply going to outperform and outlast not only your stock headlights, but also a lot of your more budget-friendly aftermarket headlights on the site as well. On top of all that, they just look killer, and your beam and cutoff is going to be absolutely superb. Now, your top 2 projectors here on each light will serve as your low beams, while the bottom 2 projectors will function as your highs. Nova does incorporate what they like to call their Ice Cube 3D projector housing here, or projectors, and as the name implies, it does give off a very 3-dimensional look. I think it looks pretty neat and just adds to the appearance of the headlights even when these things are off. But aside from the quad projectors here, which again will just be a massive improvement over the stock halogens in just about every way, from output, performance, and appearance, you're also getting some really cool extra features baked in. First up will be your daytime running lights, which are going to outline the entire housing for the most part. Now, these daytime running lights will not only illuminate with a bright white light whenever your headlights or parking lights have been switched on, but that bright white will also switch to amber whenever your turn signals or your hazards have been activated, and I think that's a very cool feature to point out. Now, speaking of those turn signals, the Novas are actually going to feature a sequential turn signal pattern, which is certainly going to add some style points as well. But maybe my favorite part about these particular lights, the Nova Series, is the activation sequence. The headlights perform anytime you lock or unlock your truck. Now, it's going to feature a combination of those running lights and those turn signals flashing in this crazy sequence. And to my knowledge, the Nova Series are really the only option currently in the category that will offer this feature. But lighting and features aside, you're going to find all of that good stuff enclosed into your durable polypropylene housing, which is then topped off with an impact-resistant polycarbonate lens. And that lens has also been given what is called an anti-fog coating, something that you don't really see a lot with these aftermarket headlights and is certainly worth mentioning here. Now, these particular Nova Series headlights do feature Midnight Black appearance package, which is essentially their smoked headlight. It's a very kind of murdered out look, for lack of a better word. But if you did want to check out some of their other offerings here on the site, they also have their matte black housing, which, as the name suggests, it's a matte black housing itself. However, your DRLs or your running lights will be a little bit different. The matte black feature more of a diffused LED running light, which is going to be slightly different from your Midnight Black here, which tend to show more of the individual diode look, more reminiscent of the OE LED headlights for this year. Now, last but not least, Nova Series is also available in chrome for owners who might have a chrome package truck, or maybe you just dig that OE chrome appearance to begin with. I always like pointing out, guys, with aftermarket headlights such as these, they have been given the DOT and SAE stamp of approval. Basically, you can use them in all 50 states and not catch any trouble. But now comes the point in the video where I stop yapping and we show you a little bit more about getting these installed on your F-150 at home. Now, I will say there's a little bit of wiring involved, nothing crazy. You're not repinning any harnesses. For the most part, everything is going to be plug and play, but there is some additional stuff needed to get everything functional and operational. So to give you a better idea of what's involved here with this particular job, check out our detailed walkthrough and tool breakdown right now.
Tools used for this install are an impact driver or ratchet, 10mm socket, 8mm socket, 7mm socket, and a clip removal tool. So to get these headlights installed on our truck, we're gonna have to take a few pieces off the front end, starting with the rad cover and the grille. This will gain us access to the headlight hardware, and then we can pull the headlights out and swap them out. So let's get started. I'm gonna start off with my clip removal tool and pop the clips out that hold the upper rad cover in. And I'll just work my way around the top of the rad cover until all the clips are gone, and then I can remove the rad cover. Next, I'm going to unplug the connectors for my ambient air temp and my active shutters for the front of the grille, and then I can remove the 4 10mm bolts that hold the grille on. The next thing I'm going to do is use my 7mm socket to remove these 2 screws in the wheel well that holds the lower lip onto the vehicle, and then I'll repeat this on the other side. Now I'm going to take my 8mm socket and remove the 2 8mm screws on the bottom of the grille located in the corners. Now you can just remove the grille from the front of the vehicle. Next, we need to remove the 2 10mm bolts that are located, one here in the corner and one at the bottom, as well as the 8mm screw that's located next to that. Finally, I'm going to remove the 2 10mm screws located at the top of the headlight, and then I can pull my headlight out and disconnect the bulbs. So before we can install our new headlights into place, there is a wire harness that's provided with the kit that needs to be installed to the battery and run to each side of the headlight. So what I'm going to do is use my 10mm socket and loosen up these 2 posts on the battery terminal, and then I can install the spade connectors with the provided wire harness. I'll just slide these right underneath and tighten those down. Now I can just run my harness to each headlight and I'm good to go. I'll basically just route my long wire here across the top of the rad support, making sure to avoid any hot or moving objects, such as the radiator itself. And that'll get me over to the other side where I can pull this wire in behind the headlight. And I'll make my connection when I install the light into place. I have my wire harness that was provided with the kit routed safely to the back of the headlight here, so now I can take my new headlight assembly and just start matching up my connectors and installing it with the factory hardware. And now I'll just use my 8 and 10 millimeter sockets to reinstall the factory hardware. And now you can just repeat the same exact process on the other side. So I've got both my headlights installed and I tested them to make sure everything works properly, so now I can begin reassembly on the front end. So I'm going to reinstall my grille, install all my connectors, and reinstall all the factory hardware. So with my grille in place, I can reinstall the factory hardware, 4 10 millimeter bolts across the top, and 2 8 millimeter bolts at the bottom corners. Next, I'll reinstall my lower grill trim and the 2 7 millimeter fasteners on each wheel well. And finally, I can reinstall my rad cover and all of the clips that secure it to the truck. And that's going to wrap up this review and install of the Nova Series LED projector headlights in midnight black, fitting your 2018 to 2020 F-150. Thanks for watching, and for all things F-150, keep it right here at AmericanTrucks.com.